The waiter brought out a bottle of wine I didn't order, and that's when I knew something was off. It was our 21st anniversary. Not the milestone year most people celebrate with speeches or surprises, but just enough of a number to give them cover. The wine was too expensive for a casual order. My wife never drank reds, and the waiter said, "Happy anniversary from the family," with a grin he probably thought was charming. I looked across the table and saw the choreography. My wife wore the dark green dress I'd always liked, though she hadn't touched it in 2 years, and my daughter was dolled up in a silk blouse like she was interviewing for someone else's life. My mother wore pearls, not costume pearls, the real ones I'd bought her after she finished chemo, something I paid for while she told people. God had provided. Everyone was a little too polite, a little too rehearsed. I took a sip of the wine. It tasted like strategy. We ate. Small talk about work. My daughter's favorite professor. My mom pretending to forget my title at the firm. Then dessert came, some pistachio thing no one asked for, and my daughter picked up her glass and tapped it twice with her fork. I knew what was coming. I didn't know the exact script, but the staging, the cadence, the timing, they gave it away. This wasn't a dinner. This was an ambush with napkins. "Dad," she said, smiling in that careful, practiced way people do when they're proud of a line they've rehearsed in the mirror. "Mom's been feeling unseen, unappreciated. Like she's still beautiful, but you don't notice. You've been so focused on work and responsibility, and she's been so patient. But people have needs, Dad. Emotional needs. And, well, we talked about it. And maybe it's time to consider opening the marriage. Just so she doesn't have to feel trapped. You know?" She said it so gently, like she was offering me a therapy pamphlet, not rewriting the contract of my life. My wife didn't speak. She stared at her plate, gently nodding, as if that somehow made her innocent. My mother didn't even wait for silence. "You've been cold since the day you turned 30, she said, lifting her wine glass to her lips. "Your father was no better. You think money replaces presence. It doesn't. And maybe if you were less emotionally constipated, your wife wouldn't feel like she had to look elsewhere. Your family's falling apart, son. And you know why? Because you're not a real man. That's just a fact." I looked at her. At all of them. My wife with her eyes carefully downcast. My daughter with her sanctimony and silicone compassion. My mother with her curated grief and pearls I bought. I stood up. Napkin down. I didn't say a word. I walked behind my daughter, kissed the top of her head softly, like a goodbye, and left. No one followed. The first thing I did when I got home was sit on the edge of the bed and stare at the carpet. My chest wasn't burning. That was the problem. I felt nothing. Not even anger. Just the click of a lock turning inside me, like something had ended without announcing itself. I knew one thing: they had coordinated. That moment wasn't spontaneous. That dinner wasn't a coincidence. That speech wasn't hers alone. My daughter, my wife, and my mother had discussed it, agreed on it, scripted it. They were willing to use love like a battering ram, smile while swinging it. That night, I didn't confront anyone. I didn't text. I didn't pace. I opened a new notebook. I wrote the date in the top right corner. Then one word in all caps, dead center, severance. And beneath it a list. A short one. But it would grow. The clue wasn't dramatic. It wasn't lipstick on a collar or a stranger's text at midnight. It was a receipt, folded into a hotel-branded envelope, tucked inside the glove box of the Audi I'd paid for. Not my Audi, hers. 2 days after the dinner, I went into autopilot. I let everyone believe I was processing things at my own pace. That phrase works wonders on people who want you quiet. I woke up on time. I went to work. I sent a few delayed smiley-face texts to my daughter just to keep the air sweet. And when I surprised my wife at her office to drop off her phone, pretending she left it at home, I casually asked for the car keys. "Don't want to leave it unlocked downtown," I said, smiling. She hesitated just long enough to confirm it. She didn't want me in that car. Not because of the car. Because of what was in it. I waited until I was around the corner, then parked and began going through everything with a methodical calm. Registration. Owner's manual. Even the tissues in the center console. Nothing. But when I opened the glove box, the hotel envelope stared back at me like it had been waiting. Not a local name. Not a chain. A boutique spa resort about 120 miles north, somewhere we had talked about going years ago. I remembered because I'd looked it up for our 17th anniversary. She told me it was too expensive. The receipt inside was 2 weeks old. 2 glasses of wine. A seasonal tasting menu. 1 room with a king bed. 1 rejuvenation couples massage. Her name was on the reservation. Mine wasn't. I didn't explode. That's what they count on. Men reacting fast and loud. I didn't even call. I sat in the car and took photos of everything. Then I closed the glove box and drove the car back to her office like nothing happened. When I handed her the keys in the parking lot, she smiled like she still had control. She kissed my cheek with half-closed eyes, the way people do when they're performing the idea of affection. She said she'd be home late. Some department head dinner. I nodded like I bought it. That night I didn't eat. I didn't even drink. I stayed in the study and opened my notebook again. This time, I started a chart. I wasn't judging them. I was documenting truth. I called it Inventory of Reality. Then I went digital. VPN on. Secure browser. Burner email. I bought a refurbished iPhone with cash the next morning. Installed a few things: GPS shadow app, remote photo access utility, and a keylogger she'd never see if she lived to be 100. And I waited. 3 nights later, while she slept beside me like nothing was wrong, I saw everything on my laptop in the next room. GPS, ping downtown, 8:43 p.m. She told me she was out with colleagues. Photos: 1 selfie taken in the car mirror at a stoplight. Hair down. Lingerie peeking through her coat. Sent through a secure disappearing image app to a number not saved in her contacts. But the keylogger gave me more. Typed messages. You make me feel like I matter again. He hasn't touched me in months. He thinks he's being distant. I'm just counting days. Soon. I'm almost done playing wife. No names. No photos of him. But there it was. Evidence. She wasn't drifting. She wasn't lonely. She was planning an exit, and keeping me in place like a wallet that cooked. By the following Monday, I had copies of every shared financial document we'd accumulated in the past 8 years. Joint accounts, insurance policies, the deed to the house, even the automatic payments I hadn't looked at since we first set them up, streaming services, gym memberships, one that turned out to be a recurring donation to a nonprofit she'd started volunteering with a few months ago, a women's empowerment retreat fund. I scrolled through the charity's social media page. It wasn't the cause that bothered me. It was the frequency of tagged photos. Most of them featured smiling women in athletic gear doing yoga, hiking, or sipping wine on rented decks with ocean views. She was in 4 of them. One post read, "Another healing weekend in Big Sur. Thank you to all the radiant women who came to reclaim their voices. And to those silently holding us back, your absence only made us louder." It had 27 likes. I stopped reading. I poured black coffee into a thermos and drove to work like it was any other day. But inside, I was framing my moves like a war game. Rule 1. Do not confront what you can control. Confrontation burns the bridge. Control turns it into a toll road. Rule 2. Leave no emotional fingerprints. You're not the betrayed husband. You're the accountant closing the ledger before an audit. I scheduled a quiet lunch with a friend at a different firm. Corporate litigation, someone I'd helped through his second divorce. We weren't close, but he respected precision, and I knew he owed me. I didn't tell him everything, just the surface. Thinking of restructuring, I said over blackened salmon. Not professionally, personally. I need options. Clean ones. Untraceable where it matters. He leaned back, chewed slowly, then nodded. Prenup? No. But all major assets are in my name. She's tied to the house and 2 cars. Everything else flows through me. He didn't smile. Just looked satisfied. Then your problem isn't legal. It's tactical. He scribbled a few names on a napkin. Financial auditor. Property appraiser. Discreet forensic accountant. Run a shadow audit. Get your real numbers. Then move quiet and fast. I paid for lunch in cash and drove back in silence. That night, while she scrolled through her phone beside me, I used my laptop to request all the necessary financial reports under a second LLC I'd formed years ago for consulting. She didn't know it existed. Most people didn't. 2 days later, the first documents arrived. I read them in the office with the door closed and my assistant holding calls. The numbers told their own story. She'd been shifting money monthly into a miscellaneous expense category under our joint account. Small withdrawals, always under $300. Just enough to avoid raising digital flags. One transfer to an out-of-state account, listed under a name I didn't recognize. She had also quietly requested a change to her life insurance beneficiary, replacing me with Family Trustee. We didn't have a family trustee, but the account routing number matched the same one receiving those out-of-state payments. I stared at that number for 15 full minutes, then I smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. The kind people wear in courtrooms when they've already won. She wasn't just having an affair. She was structuring an exit, legally, emotionally, financially, moving me out of her future piece by piece while pretending the present was stable. That's when the list in my notebook got a new name. Obituaries. Not literal. I don't operate that way. These were identity deaths. The version of her I once loved. The version of my daughter I once trusted. The version of my mother who once defended me. I wrote each of their names and drew a line through the center. The next step was my daughter. Her college tuition was routed automatically each semester through a scholarship fund I created in her name. It made me look philanthropic and gave her full ride access. I could cancel it with a single form filed under the LLC's Education Disbursement Clause. I didn't cancel it yet, but I drafted the paperwork, and I stared at it like a final exam. I remembered her birthday, how she hugged me when I surprised her with that used Prius, the way her voice broke when she said, "I'll pay you back for this one day, Dad." I remembered driving 3 hours in a rainstorm when she called, sobbing after her first heartbreak. I remembered believing I'd raised someone with a spine, with her own voice. Now she sat next to her mother at a dinner table and read off a script, told me I was the problem, the obstacle, the emotional jailer. I hadn't spoken to her since that night. I wasn't angry. I was done. The phone buzzed later that week. A message from my wife. "We should talk this weekend. I want to explain everything." I didn't reply. She followed up with, "Please don't shut me out. It's not what you think." Still no reply. I wasn't going to grant her a conversation she hadn't earned. Let her sit in silence for a while. Let the pressure build. She had made one fatal error. She thought I'd cling. She thought the quieter I got, the more desperate I became. She never once imagined I was building the gallows behind a smile. The morning I received the DNA test results, I was eating the same dry toast I'd eaten every day for a month. Nothing special about the day, except for the silence. My wife had stopped pretending. No more half-kisses or feigned affection. She left the bedroom before I woke up, and came back only after I turned off the lights. It wasn't coldness. It was choreography. I logged into the encrypted account from my work laptop. No pop-up. No preamble. Just a PDF file named Confidential. Parentage Analysis. Client 941. It didn't take long to read. The language was clinical. Detached. Probability of paternity 0%. My eyes didn't widen. My pulse didn't change. I clicked the red X in the corner of the document, and closed the lid of the laptop. Then I picked up my toast, took another bite, and chewed like I was reading the weather. There was no weather. Just a storm that had already passed, and I was standing in the aftermath pretending it was still raining. I didn't order the test because of a hunch. I ordered it because of a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. 2 weeks earlier, I came home earlier than planned. No traffic, no warning. Walked through the front door at 5:42 p.m. and heard laughter coming from the kitchen. Not hers, his. A man's voice. Low, confident. Not startled. Not nervous. The sound of someone who had been there before. Then my daughter said something that made my spine straighten. She said, "Well, maybe it's better this way. I mean, you were always more of a dad than he was." They laughed, both of them, her and the man I hadn't met. I stood in the foyer. I didn't walk in. I didn't make a scene. I turned around and walked back out. That night, I asked her to dinner. Just the two of us. She agreed. I picked a quiet spot downtown, where no one would know us, and sat across from her while she played with the menu. I studied her face, her eyes, her bone structure, the tiny habits I always thought were mine, the way she tapped the table twice before speaking, like she needed rhythm to find her words. But as she talked about classes and stress and how Mom was just going through something, I realized how much of her I had projected onto her, how much of myself I'd pretended lived inside her. She wasn't mine, and she probably never had been. I didn't confront her. I paid for dinner. I smiled. I even hugged her outside the restaurant like I believed it all still meant something. Then I drove to a private lab and submitted a test I had collected myself the day before. Hair from her brush. Saliva from her coffee mug. My sample I gave on site. The results came back exactly 14 days later, and they erased 21 years in one sentence. Probability of paternity, 0%. That night, I didn't sleep in the bedroom. I stayed in the guest room with the door closed and a notepad in my lap. I drew a timeline. Her pregnancy. The job she took right after. The friend she reconnected with from high school around the same time. A man I'd never met, but whose name I now remembered clearly from our shared social media history. I found him. He was still in the city. Never married. Former firefighter. Now a physical therapist. Broad-shouldered. Always smiling. Public posts full of inspirational quotes and shirtless hikes. My daughter followed him on Instagram. They had liked each other's posts for years. That was the twist of the knife, not just the betrayal, but the slow, public grooming of affection right under my nose. The signs were there. They always are. You just don't see them when you're playing the role of provider, of rock, of fool. My mother called the next morning. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I heard you're being cold. That's not the man I raised. She's hurting too, you know. I stared at the phone until the screen went dark. A week before the anniversary dinner, I'd received a call from the billing department of her clinic. The copay had bounced. That was odd, since I'd paid it 6 months in advance. I checked the financials and saw that she had redirected her secondary coverage to a new policy, one listed under a domestic dependent relative clause filed by my wife. I didn't even know that was legal. Apparently, if you can show long-term cohabitation and shared expenses, you can add someone's mother to your health plan. My wife had added mine, and then quietly reallocated the payments to come from a separate account funded by me, but routed through her authority. She was using my name, my mother, and my money to play savior. The woman who once told me I wasn't a real man had signed onto a lifeboat built with my spine, and then helped light the ship on fire behind her. I called the insurance company. I canceled the policy. I notified the clinic that all future bills would need to go through her new benefactor. Then I closed my laptop, went outside, and watched the sky darken without moving. I wasn't grieving. I had already buried all of them. I just hadn't written the eulogies yet. But I would. Not with anger. With precision. It started with a letter. Thick envelope. Hand-delivered to my office by a courier who smiled like he was dropping off flowers. Signature, please, he said without making eye contact. The return address wasn't a name. Just a firm. Coulson, Wright and Bradley. Downtown. One of those high-gloss legal outfits that specializes in discreet domestic reallocation. A euphemism for weaponized divorce. Inside was a formal notice of intent to file for legal separation, filed by her. But it was backdated. 2 months. I read the document 3 times, not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. She had filed the groundwork long before the anniversary dinner, before the speech, before the fake glass-clinking moral appeals. That whole performance, the daughter's plea, my mother's critique, wasn't spontaneous. It was a trap, a carefully coordinated setup to frame me as emotionally withdrawn, disinterested, and, most critically, negligent. She wasn't preparing for a separation. She was positioning me as the deserter. If I had shouted that night, if I'd accused her, if I had stormed out like a man reacting from pride or pain, it would have all played into her hands. A sudden, irrational exit, emotional abandonment, justification for spousal advantage. But I hadn't shouted. I just walked away. Silently. Now that silence was saving me. I called my attorney immediately. His voice was calm but sharper than usual. He'd seen it before. This isn't just a divorce strategy, he said. It's a reputation strategy. She's trying to walk away as the sympathetic party. If she files first, she controls the narrative. You're the absentee. She's the wounded partner. She's building custody over social opinion. I wasn't a father, not really. I'd already buried that illusion, but I had relationships, business alliances, clients, a professional reputation, and she was reaching for all of it. My wife had created a secondary persona of herself online. Professional, charming, emotionally articulate. She'd been slowly curating a digital scrapbook of her transformation. Empowerment quotes, photos with friends at retreats, captions that hinted at growth after trauma. None of it explicitly mentioned me. but the subtext dripped like venom. It's hard to become yourself when someone needs you to stay small. Healing isn't selfish, it's survival. I finally realized I was grieving a man who never actually existed. She was painting me as the ghost, and she hadn't done it alone. My mother had been liking and commenting on those posts for months. Subtle little phrases. So proud of you. Some people just can't grow with you. You deserve every bit of peace. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My own mother. The woman I'd moved across the country for. Whose treatment I had paid for. Whose life I had bent my schedule, savings, and self around. And she was cheering my erasure. But the real twist came when I followed the paper trail behind her. Retreat Foundation. The same nonprofit I'd discovered during the shadow audit. It was incorporated under my name. Not hers. Mine. She'd filed the paperwork as a gift for our 20th anniversary. She told me she wanted to honor our legacy by creating a vehicle for healing and empowerment. She convinced me to sign a few papers. Just boilerplate legal stuff, honey, the accountant will handle the rest. Now the organization, which she used for travel, connections, and reputation, was registered with me as its founder, its financial backer, and its legal fiduciary. If there were discrepancies in funding, if she dipped into funds that were supposed to be used for charitable events but ended up financing spa weekends and private therapy with the man she was sleeping with, I would be liable. The receipts I'd uncovered, the transfers I'd traced, the withdrawals under vague category names, they weren't just suspicious. They were potentially criminal. It hit me all at once. This wasn't just betrayal. This was annihilation. She wasn't trying to escape me. She was trying to replace me. Use my money, my name, my goodwill, and then bury me under the wreckage while she rose from the ashes, rebranded as the survivor of a man who never really saw her. She wanted me gone but useful. Gone from her life. Useful as a cautionary tale. And if she could, she'd burn my reputation so thoroughly that I couldn't even push back. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't scream. I made 2 phone calls, one to the nonprofit board director, who had no idea I was listed as founder. The second to a tax attorney I trusted more than anyone I'd ever met. Then I walked into our bedroom, opened her nightstand drawer while she showered, and took photos of every receipt, every pamphlet, every card connected to that foundation. Each one uploaded to an encrypted drive. I didn't confront her. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the bathroom door as steam curled out the crack. And I thought, she's still playing a game. But the board's about to flip. I didn't call a meeting. I didn't send a message asking her to sit down. That would have given her time to prepare, time to rehearse more victimhood, polish her performance, or shift her narrative. No, I waited until a perfectly ordinary Sunday morning. Calm. Routine. Predictable. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, sipping coffee from the ceramic mug my daughter had made in high school. The one with the lopsided handle and the word, stamped across the front like a brand she'd earned. I walked in, freshly shaved, dressed in the dark navy shirt she always said made me look like a partner, not just a provider. I poured myself a cup of black coffee. No pleasantries. No eye contact. I just said, I filed. Her mug paused halfway to her lips. What? I filed for divorce Friday morning. Emergency motion. Irreconcilable differences. The courts already approved temporary financial orders. She blinked. Not confusion, calculation. Watching me like a chessboard. Measuring whether I was bluffing. She set the mug down with slow control, lips tightening. You didn't even talk to me. I did. I sipped the coffee. I listened to you at dinner. Remember? You had your little chorus behind you. Mom on harmony. Our daughter on melody. You were all very composed. She scoffed, started to speak, but I held up a single finger. That shut her down. No shouting. I said, no spin. You've spent the past year building a case. Curating your exit. You filed intent papers 2 months ago, backdated them, tried to shape a narrative where I was cold, distant, withholding. Her lips parted slightly. Surprise, real this time. You didn't think I knew? I pulled a small stack of paper from my inside jacket pocket and dropped it on the table. No flourish. Just wait. Facts. Printed and time-stamped. Her emails to her attorney. The revised insurance documents. Screenshots of the retreat posts. Her mother-in-law's comments. A copy of the foundation filing with my forged digital signature. She didn't reach for the papers. just stared at them like they might bite. Then she said quietly, "You went through my things." "No," I said. "I went through our things, things filed under my name, funded by my accounts, backed by my credibility." A beat of silence. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I was trying to find myself. You stopped seeing me. And so you built an exit strategy funded by theft and betrayal?" She choked back the next word, then regrouped. "I needed more than you were giving." I nodded. "I figured. That's why I froze the accounts Friday morning." Her face went pale. "What accounts?" "All of them. Joint accounts, investment distributions, credit cards, even your car lease. The house is in my name. As of now, you're here as a guest." Her jaw clenched. "You can't do that. My lawyer will." I cut her off. Not loud, not cruel, just surgical. "Your lawyer will find you're already under investigation for misappropriation of charitable funds. Your foundation spent over $18,000 on personal travel, private sessions with an unlicensed therapist, and venue rentals for unsanctioned events. All of it under a 501c3, with my signature." She didn't speak. "The IRS has already been notified." Quietly, I gave them full access, along with copies of every document. Still nothing. No rebuttal. No denial. So I leaned in, quietly, calmly, with the kind of precision that only comes from months of silence. "You didn't just betray me. You tried to redefine me, to make me small so you could grow. But you forgot one thing. I've been building empires quietly while you've been curating Instagram quotes. I don't break. I don't explode." I stood, buttoned my jacket. I erase. I walked out of the kitchen and into the garage. The cars were already gone, both of them, towed at dawn to a storage facility under my name. Her phone lit up with messages as I passed it, charging on the counter. "Your card was declined. Need to confirm payment for retreat. Do you have another payment method?" She wouldn't respond to any of them. She didn't have a card anymore. Not one that worked. And her image? Her persona? That was going next. By the end of the day, every business partner and donor she'd courted through my reputation would receive an email. An elegant, legal notification disavowing her foundation and distancing my name from all her affiliations. The board would collapse. The funding would dry up. She'd be left with quotes on a feed no one trusted anymore. She followed me outside 30 minutes later. "You're punishing me," she said. Not angry. Desperate. "You're destroying my life." "No," I said, turning to face her one last time. "I'm letting it collapse under the weight of your own design. You handed me the blueprint." She stood there, barefoot, arms folded, eyes wet, but not from remorse, from the realization that I wasn't bluffing. That I wasn't the man she thought she could dance around anymore. I stepped into my car. My actual car. The one still in my name. As I backed out of the driveway, she didn't follow. Just stood there, holding the edges of a life she thought she'd be walking away from clean. But nothing stays clean once the silence starts talking.